The psychology of collecting sports cards. What I want you to do is tell me which one of these cards appeals to you the most. That's right. When you look at these different set of cards, which one or two stands out to you the most? Which one would you want to buy if they were available? And which one would you want in your collection more than the others? The psychology of collecting sports cards. This week on EDI Sportshow. Welcome back to EDI Sportshow. I'll be your host, Doc Schwartz. And this week we're going to take a deep dive into the psychology of collecting sports cards in a way that has never been done on YouTube before. That's right, we're going to examine how psychology plays a role in how you collect cards. Did you realize that psychology plays a role in the cards that you buy? Not only that, but psychology also plays a role in the cards that you don't like or don't want anything to do with. This isn't a magic trick, this is pure psychology. So where should we begin this episode? Why don't we start with an easy one? Personality. That's right, your personality will play a very big role in the cards that you want to buy and also collect. Not only that, but your personality will also play a role in whether or not you're susceptible to fall into the trap of sports card gambling. I'll talk about that a little bit later in this episode. But for right now, I just want to go over a few concepts with you. First, there are two types of personalities. That's right. One is what's called agreeable people, and two is disagreeable people. So here's what you need to understand. There's two types of personalities. One is agreeable, two is disagreeable. Did you even know that there are two types of personalities? And did you know that psychologists can actually measure where on the spectrum you fall between agreeable and disagreeable? For example, I happen to be a disagreeable person. Now, that doesn't mean what you think it means. Again, agreeable and disagreeable are just two personality types. That doesn't mean that you're good or bad. So here's what psychologists have to say about the two types of personalities. An agreeable person is more often than not going to try to find common ground or to make everyone feel okay. That's why they're an agreeable person. They don't want conflict. They don't want people to be at odds. On the other hand, a disagreeable person is not going to appease everyone in the group. In fact, they're probably going to ask more questions and also to start up more arguments and debates. That's the difference between an agreeable person and a disagreeable person. An agreeable person wants to keep the peace, whereas a disagreeable person wants to be more defiant. That's the difference. And that's all that you need to understand so that you can understand yourself better and also what happens in sports card collecting. Now that you know the difference between the two personality types, I want you to now determine which personality you have. Are you agreeable or disagreeable? So what does personality have to do with sports card collecting? It turns out personality has a lot to do with how you collect cards. For example, if you're an agreeable person, you're more susceptible to buy what everyone else is buying. That's right. You're going to get swept up in the euphoria of the marketing and all of the social media posts. Whereas if you're a disagreeable person, you're more often than not likely to buy a card that no one else wants. Again, you're going to go counterculture and buy things that other people don't want. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're buying what you want to buy. It just means that your personality is looking at all of the information out there in the world and making a decision based on your psychology rather than what you actually want. So here's what I want you to do. What I want you to do is I want you to think about the last card that you bought, all right? And I want you to think about, did you buy it because everyone else was buying it? Did you fall into the hype? Or did you buy it because no one else was buying it and therefore you were trying to do what everyone else wasn't doing? And that's my point. Your psychology is actually determining much more about the cards that you want to buy than you actually realize. But let's talk about the trap of sports card gambling. If you're a subscriber to this channel, then you already know I've talked a lot about Fanatics and how it's trying to change the hobby over the last 40 years. If you're not a subscriber, you should hit the subscribe button right now because you're not going to want to miss this show in 2025. As you know, every wax box right now offers you a chance of getting a big hit. What you may or may not realize is that that big hit opportunity is what's called a lottery. Now, most of us associate lotteries with either scratch-off tickets or the Mega Millions. But what I want you to do right now is think about the sports card lottery and how it's different than the actual lottery. What's the difference between scratch-offs and wax boxes? When you buy a lottery ticket, you are paying $2 for the chance to get a big prize. The same thing happens when you buy a wax box. When you buy a wax box, you're paying $100 for the chance to get a big hit. What I want you to start realizing is that the entire sports card hobby has become one big lottery. Now, this is where your personality comes into play. If you're an agreeable person, you're probably going to continue to buy wax because you hope that you'll be one of the lucky ones that gets the big hit. You're agreeable, so you're okay with going along with the narrative. You're okay with going along with the crowd. Whereas if you're a disagreeable person, you're never going to buy wax at this point unless the prices come down a lot. Like I said, I'm a disagreeable person. Therefore, I will not buy wax because I know it's a lottery and there's no chance that I'll ever win that big hit. So why waste my money? And this is what I hope that you're starting to get from this episode is your personality actually determines what you're doing. If you're agreeable, you're feeding into the lottery. If you're disagreeable, you're rejecting the lottery. And that's it. It's all based on your psychology. But all hope is not lost. The reason that I wanted to make this week's episode all about teaching you the psychology of collecting sports cards is because I want to give you the ability to have more control over what you do. I don't want you to be susceptible to the sports card gambling, or if you're a disagreeable person, just buying stuff that no one else wants just because no one else wants it. I don't want you to be kind of beholden to your personality, but be in charge of your personality. Because when you understand psychology better, you have more control. So here's what I want you to do. Therefore, how do you collect the cards you actually want? To answer this question, I've laid out 4 steps for you to follow. So let's go over them right now. Step 1, set an annual budget for sports cards. Step 2, write down a list of all the cards that you want to buy. Step 3, price out the cards on your list. And step 4, don't buy wax. If you follow this simple 4-step process, you're going to have more control over your sports card collecting. You're also going to have more control over getting sucked into the hype and the marketing that Fanatics is trying to shove down your throat. You're not going to get caught up in the trap of sports card gambling. And that's the most important thing. I want you to be in charge of your collection. I want you to know more about yourself and also buy the cards that you want. Stop listening to the hype. Stop getting caught up in the social media bounty hunts and stop worrying about what everyone else is doing. This is your collection. You should be in charge of it. And that's my lesson for this week. Are you ready to take the quiz? Oh, you didn't think you were going to get out of this so easy, did you? Well, here's the quiz that I want you to do to test which personality that you have, and not only that, but that you're in more control over the cards that you actually want. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you the same cards that I showed you at the beginning of this episode. But this time what I want you to do is I want you to look at all the sets of the cards, and I want you to pick the one card that you want more than any other. Out of all of the cards that you see, which is the one card that you want the most? Now, here's what I want all the agreeable people to do. I want you to promise that you're not going to look at what everyone else writes down in the comments. That's right. I want you to put your answer in the comment. Which one of these cards that you're seeing right now do you want the most? And agreeable people need to promise me that you will not look at what other people are writing, because I want you to make the choice on your own. Now, if you're disagreeable, I also want you to make the same promise. Do not look at what other cards people are picking, because I want you to not try to go against the grain. I want you to make your own decision. I cannot wait to see the cards that you pick down in the comments. Now, before we get to the viewer comments in this week's episode, I want to make sure that everybody knows that I run a poll in the community tab section, and I have one going on right now, and this one is called, which generation do you think likes sports cards the most? Now, I'm going to highlight this, and I also want you to hit the subscribe button right now, because there's going to be a poll not just this week, but next week and the following week. And since I have over 2,000 subscribers, what everybody should know is that if I can get 1,000 votes on any one of these polls, that data is validated. What I would love to be able to do is you go to this poll and say, which generation do you think actually likes sports cards the most? And then if I can get 1,000 votes, that will be validated data, and I will start to be able to report to you on actual survey questions, which I would love to be able to do, because I think this is important for the hobby. I think that your voice needs to be heard, and the only way to do that is to go to the community poll. Now, here we go. Are you ready for the viewer comment? It is time for the viewer comments. I love this section, as I've told you, because this is where you guys actually get to say what you want to say, ask the questions you want to ask, push back on the things that you disagree with me on. Again, I welcome you pushing back. Please be respectful. But again, my viewers, I have over 2,000 subscribers, and my viewers are very intelligent and also very respectful, so I appreciate it. Here we go. We got 4 comments this week, and so I'm going to get into the first one. This one comes from Jim Lemansky, and this is what he said. I hope it busts. This way, true collectors can start filling their collections again, and it gets rid of the wannabe investors. This is all from last week's episode, Boom or Bust. Yes, will the sports card market crash in 2025? So, Jim, all right, let's take a look at this whole comment. So you hope that it busts. Well, I'm going to just say this. I don't hope that the sports card market busts. Unfortunately, that's just what's going to happen. Basically, because Fanatics is putting the pedal to the metal, they are going to aggressively try to ruin the entire sports card hobby, because they have got themselves caught in a financial situation. They are in so much debt that they need to now kind of grow their way out of it. And unfortunately, there's no way to do that. They are in real trouble and they need to get to an IPO as fast as humanly possible. Like we've already talked about the psychology of sports card collecting in this episode, there's also the psychology of investing and Wall Street. And agreeable people are easy to manipulate. They're just easy to manipulate. Disagreeable people are a little bit harder to manipulate, but there are more agreeable people than there are disagreeable people. And that's why people get scammed all the time. So that's why this episode is so important. The sports card hobby is going to be going down. I don't know if it's going to bust. I don't know that it's going to crash. It's going down. Yes, that is going to give collectors an opportunity to buy the cards that they want. But remember, I gave you a 4-step process in this episode. Please follow it so that you stay disciplined. Don't buy cards that you don't actually want. Don't buy cards that you don't actually want. Please, that's the big message. Just buy what you actually want. Let's get to the second comment. This was from Colin Burrows, 9871. This is what he said, again, on the same last week's episode. So, what's a crash when the market for the stuff you bought at a box store isn't one-to-one? With the high-end products, rich kids / adults with taste for 5,000K boxes are looking for. This whole thing is a multi-level ... hot potato game, and the broader economic picture being what it is, irrespective of who one wants to blame. I know what I think is going on. They won't stop blowing cash, won't mess with the rich kids, adults with taste for 5K boxes crowd anyway, or the top end purchasers. The rest is what it's always been, a hobby, not the stock market. All right. There's a lot in that comment. That's why I wanted to read the whole thing instead of stop and then go. So here we go. Colin, there's a lot of what you said is true, but there's also a misunderstanding. And so the first thing that I want you to misunderstand is the number of people you think are rich kids and adults is just out of whack with reality. According to Bank of America, more than 75% of Americans have less than $1,000 in their bank account. I'm sorry to tell you, but that's hundreds of millions of people. The number of people that are rich, that are buying boxes, is not that much. The people that are actually buying all this stuff are buying it on credit card. They're buying it on credit. And that's actually the bigger danger going on, is that people are going into debt to buy these 5,000K boxes. The issue isn't the manufacturers. The issue is people. Again, agreeable people who get sucked into this gambling mindset that just go, I should buy it because I have the chance to win the lottery. What I'm telling everybody, and what I hope my subscribers get, is that if you want to play the lottery, pay $2 for a lottery ticket. It's not going to break the bank. You're better off doing that type of lottery than the 5,000K or 1,000K wax box lottery. You're getting screwed 6 ways to Sunday. And that's my message. It's got nothing to do with anything else. It's got nothing to do with what the cards are that are in the boxes. It's got nothing to do with the hobby. It just has to do with this is a lottery and you're never going to win. That's what the odds say. If it's a 1-1, you're never going to get the 1-1. And I know you're like deluding yourself into thinking, but I could get the 1-1. Let's take the opposite approach. Again, I'm a disagreeable person. So I'm going to take the devil's advocate side and tell you why you're not going to get the 1-1. And that's the issue. You're not considering that you won't get it. You're only going, well, I will. Well, I will. And then when you buy the box, you open the box, and there's no 1-1 in there, you're now realizing, oh, I just paid a lot for nothing. Oh, I just paid a lot for nothing. What I'm trying to do is prevent you from doing that. Stop buying a wax box with the hope that you're going to get a 1-of-1. You're never going to do that. If you have that mindset, I'm never going to win the lottery, then you never waste your money on the lottery. That's it. And yes, you kind of have to say, like, then I'm never going to have a 1-of-1. Unfortunately, yes, you're never going to have a 1-of-1 unless, here's the caveat, Unless if everybody stops buying wax because no one wants to participate in the lottery anymore, then all of those 101s crash. Everything comes back down to earth. And now if you actually want a 101, you might be able to buy it on your own because the entire balloon market that Fanatics has created has burst. And that's it. That's all that I'm saying. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's get to the third comment. This is from 1983 AW. So he said, so if you say 300,000 cards, you can't sell them for $1 a piece. You could only get like $400. Didn't see that coming. All right, there's a lot in that comment, so I got to break it down first. So the first piece is if you have 300,000 cards, let's say you inherited that because no one's buying 300,000 cards anymore. These are all collections that baby boomers collected back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s that they don't know what to do with because it's a hoard, a mini hoard or a hoard, whatever you want to call it. And it got so big and overwhelming that the baby boomer, who is a complete narcissist, just didn't care. They were like, I don't even want to sort it. I don't want to go through it. I don't want to organize it. I don't want to sell it. I don't want to do anything. I hoarded it, and that's my job. You, now as my kin, as my inheritors, I'm going to give you this hoard so you now deal with the responsibility. Because that's what narcissists do. They basically delegate responsibility to other people and they go, oh, laissez-faire, I have nothing to do with it. Yet you're the one that created the problem and now you're shifting the problem to someone else. It's a bad thing, but whatever. If you have 300,000 cards, here's the first thing you need to know. You cannot sell 300,000 cards in one deal. That's the first thing you need to know. So no, is 300,000 cards worth $400? Well, it depends on what's in the lot. Again, 300,000 cards is a lot of freaking cards. But I'm just going to tell you it's a bad idea to try to sell 300,000 cards in one deal. That's just, you're not going to get the real value because it's too much. It's a hoard. You're literally paying someone to come and take away your junk. It doesn't matter that you have good stuff in it. It's just too much. So my suggestion would be to break it down into smaller chunks. So if you have 300,000 cards that you're trying to sell, I would recommend break it down into 25,000 card lots. If you want to sell in bulk, again, understand, once you start selling in bulk, you can only sell for 50 cents on the dollar. Everybody needs to realize that you're a wholesaler when you sell in bulk. You cannot sell retail selling 25,000 cards. So if the cards are only worth $1 each, which I'm going to argue they're probably not, they're probably only worth 50 cents each, which means you can only sell them for 25 cents each. That's just the way it goes. If you're selling in bulk, because you're selling wholesale. If you want to send in 1,000, 2,000 cards to ComC, check out my cards that are all worth, let's say 75 cents each. You want to send them all in, like again, a few thousand cards and just let them go. I don't know how ComC really works, but let them go on auction and they sell for 50 cents to 75 cents each. Then yes, you're going to get more money that way. Now, I have no idea how long that's going to take, just making that honest, and I think there's covering costs with ComC, so you might actually pay more money than you get back, which no one seems to do in the calculations. I'm going to send it to consignor and I'm going to make a fortune. No, you're not. You first have to pay the eBay fees, second you have to pay the consignor fees, and then you get your cut. So you actually probably end up getting the same that you would have gotten on a bulk deal, and in some cases even less, because you didn't do any work. The consignor did all the work, and they get paid for the work they do. Want to be very clear, there's nothing wrong with consignors, but you need to pay for their service because they're doing work for you. They're the ones selling your cards. You can't just sit back and go, oh, I own $17,000 worth of cards and I'm going to get $17,000 worth of cards. It's just not the way it works in reality. If you want $17,000, then you need to sell them. which means you need to find the buyer, you need to do all the work, you need to do the marketing, you need to do the selling, because that's work and you get paid for the work you do. If you don't want to do any work, you're not going to get any money. That's the bottom line. The second piece of this is if you are selling a lot, let's say 100 or more cards, as someone who actually evaluates what collections are worth, and I've been doing this for 40 years, whether I wanted to or not, it came part of the territory. And for those that don't know, please go watch the Origin playlist. I put the link down below so you can see where I'm coming from. Again, what I started as a teenager back in the 80s till today. So when I evaluate a collection, I'm looking at first, this is the first thing I'm looking at, is the most expensive cards in your lot. What's the most valuable cards? I want to put all those down on the table and I want to price those out because that's the baseline. Then I'm going to go, okay, what's the rest of this bulk? Which you need to understand, if you want me to take that bulk, that means that you're giving me more of a discount on the cards that are on the table. And I know you don't like that, but that's the truth. Not telling you something just to manipulate you. This is the truth. If you want to sell in bulk, you have to take 50 cents on the dollar. That's just the way it is. So if you have a whole box of cards, that let's say 100 cards, and they're worth, let's say $5,000, if you want me to take the bulk with it, that box is only now $2,500 to you. I'm not paying more than $2,500. And now we'll figure out how much the bulk is worth. End of story. Now, if you want to only sell me that one box of $5,000 worth of cards, now we're going to have a negotiation because I'm only talking about a limited amount of cards, which means if you want 80% of comps, I might have to pay 80% of comps because you're only selling a limited amount of cards that I know what they're worth. And that's the issue. And that's the message that you need to take away is that if you sell in bulk, you have to sell at wholesale. That's 50% of what it's worth. End of story. Stop arguing. You're not going to win. Now, maybe you will find a sucker who will pay more. Again, there's a lot of sports card influencers that will pay more. Unfortunately, Cards HQ has learned the hard way, you don't overpay for cards. And there's a lot more videos now on the Sports Card Investor channel about how they don't want to pay too much for cards. Listen to what I'm saying. The people that have the cash, I have $10,000 to deploy in 2025. I've spent $0 so far because no one wants to actually sell their cards. That's not my fault. That's you guys. You don't want to actually sell your cards. Don't talk about I'm holding for long-term value. You have no more long-term value. Those days are gone. The cards are worth more today than they'll be worth in 20 years. Everything is going to be going down. From here, we've already had the peak, and now it's on the slow decline down. So a year from now, your cards are going to be worth less than they are today. 2 years from now, your cards are going to be worth less than they are today. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. We're in another 15-year cycle before there's another upturn. And I know you're probably like, well, how do you know that? Because that's the cycles of the hobby. That's just the way it is. Now, will there be volatility in the hobby? Yes. Will there be certain players that will go up and down? Yes. But overall, the sports card hobby is coming down in price. That's just the way it is. That's what the data is saying. Again, the speed at which it goes down, I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm telling you the truth. I have no idea. But I know that card prices are coming down. They came down from last year to this year. They're going to go down this year from last year. That's just the way it is. So if you really want to get the most value, now's the time to sell. Let's get to the last comment. This one is a long one, but really, really smart. So hopefully everybody stayed to the end. All right. Higher Learnings 1272. Here we go. I am not in the sports card collecting community, but it has been interesting to me recently. I see so much money being thrown at cardboard that it simply amazes me. Trust me, you're not the only one. It seems to me that everything getting printed into oblivion currently will not really hold long-term value for anyone. Well, here's the issue, is that we had a boom from the 80s till 2025, or 2020, let's just say. So the problem is that it took 35 years. See, that's the problem. And what people are going to say is, well, if I hold on for another 35 years, I'm guaranteed to get the same pop. And what I'm telling you is that's just a bad piece of advice. Like, you're not guaranteed to get anything. People got lucky. There are certain cards that definitely really held over, mainly the 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle rookie card. That one just went through the atmosphere. Again, it's just certain cards are going to be iconic and certain cards are going to not just retain value, but be worth a lot of money. Most cards, 99% of cards, are just not going to be worth very much. All right, let's get back to the comment. Rippers, whoever is actually buying the packs, boxes to collect that are being opened, seem to get pennies on the dollar. I know a lot of it is the thrill of opening and hitting big, but it's actually worth that, plus the joy the cards bring to them, plus the long-term investment value in the end. Well, we're in a lottery and this is a gambling mindset. What do you think the state of the economy world will be in the next 50 years? So first of all, 50 years is too long to look at because I won't be alive in 50 years. I'll be lucky to be alive in 50 years. So I have no idea what it's going to be. The second thing is, as we keep moving through the millennium, through the century, things start to change. And also economics as well as technology is rapidly moving, which means a lot of things are different. Now, one of the things I'm doing outside of sports cards is I'm trying to fix the educational system, and I'm trying to help people actually build successful careers as well as businesses. Now, if I'm successful at doing that, more people are going to have money, which means that more people will have money to buy cards. The problem right now, and this is the issue, that you have to worry about right now. Don't worry about 50 years from now. Worry about today. And right now, most people don't have any money. Most people are in debt. Now, they may not realize they're in debt because they think that their credit card is not actually debt. I don't know why. They think that the credit card is just extra money. Well, I'll just put it on the credit card. And unfortunately, that's just a bad way of understanding money. You don't understand money. That's it. Your credit card is not an extension. Your credit card is a tool. If you have money, you have a choice. You can either pay for it now or you could pay for it later. I love using credit cards because I get bonus points, plus I then pay off the credit card at the end of the month. I have the money to spend, but I choose to pay later because the credit card gives me advantages. It gives me perks for actually using them to pay my bills. To me, it's a win-win. I'll take the extra points, I'll take the advantages, I'll take all the perks, and I'll still pay it off at the end of the month. Most people don't do that with their credit cards. Most people put stuff on their credit card and cannot pay it at the end of the month, which means they incur interest fees. That's called debt. Now, that's the issue. Now, the average person in the United States has around $20,000 of credit card debt. That's on their balance sheet. Again, you have a personal balance sheet. So you're walking around in debt $20,000, yet you think you're doing okay. You're not. You're $20,000 in debt. If you lose your job, you will lose everything. I don't know if people understand that. So what's happening is that some people are trying to use the sports card hobby as a lottery to get themselves out of debt. And that's also a gambling mindset. That's what happens when gamblers lose at the blackjack table. They're down $15,000 and they're like, well, I'll win my way back. Guess what? you're never winning your way back. That's actually the point, is that once you lose a certain amount of money, you need to walk away. You need to say, all right, I don't have it today. I need to come back. And that's the point, is that you have to have a budget when you gamble. If you don't have a budget, you're going to get yourself into trouble. So that's my point, is that you have to take advantage of your own circumstances. Don't allow other people to dictate to you what's going on. Should you invest in sports cards? I have a whole playlist that talks about how you cannot actually invest in sports cards. Does that mean sports cards are not valuable? No, that's not the same thing. Sports cards are valuable. Let's finish this comment out and then we'll talk about next week. All right. Will people have enough disposable income to care about cardboard? Like you said, I think the gambling mindset is extremely big in the community, and people need to take a step back sometimes and look at the bigger picture. I think you did a good job at explaining things. This coming from me, who has collected rocks. I think he meant that actual rock collection. Not much anymore because of the state. I think things are coming to. I really appreciate that higher learnings. You are at an intellectual level. You're looking at the global picture and saying, wait a minute, what is actually going on? So for anybody that's still watching this, hopefully you have stayed to the end. I appreciate it. Again, over 2,000 subscribers. If you know anybody in the sports card hobby, or you know somebody who wants to be in the sports card hobby, send them this video. This might be the most important video that anyone ever watches this year. Post it on social media. Please share it with everybody. Let's see how many subscribers we can get from this one. But here's the piece. Gambling is bad. I don't know how else to say it. Gambling is bad. Gambling is not a way to make money. Now, there's a difference between if you want to be a card gambler, like if you want to be a Texas Hold'em gambler, that's what your job is. That's a whole different story. That means that you're studying cards. That means you're studying all the percentages. You know when the cards are in the river, you know the percentages based on what you have. What's the likelihood that I'm going to win? If you don't know the percentages, you should not be playing cards. So that means you better start learning your math. If you can't do that, do not gamble. Do not play cards. You are a sucker. You're a fool. You are an idiot. Stop doing that. So if you want to go to Las Vegas and you want to pretend like you're a high roller, there's nothing wrong with that. Remember, what's your budget? So if you are like, you know what, I want to be a high roller when I go to the casino, great. Then put away $10,000, go to the casino and play that $10,000. And if you lose it all, you lost it all. Probably if you have $10,000 and you are going to play slots, that'll probably last you a good long while. Like I'm just saying, like you probably won't lose all $10,000 because it's going to last you your whole trip. And so the question will be, did you win anything or how much did you lose? But you'll probably come home with a few grand. And so it's like, all right, you know what? I had fun while I was there. If you go with a smaller budget, then yes, you're probably going to blow it. That's the point. The sports card hobby is all about collecting cards. What cards do you want to collect? Well, that's actually what we're going to talk about. Let's talk about next week. So what I want you to do is I want you to put down, if you're now here, put down your questions. What kinds of questions do you have about collecting cards? Do you care about which manufacturers? Do you care about eras? Do you care about like what the cards actually look like? Do you like the vintage compared to the modern shiny? What is it that you like and what questions do you have going forward in 2025 with sports card collecting? I want to thank everybody for joining me this week. Hopefully this becomes the best video I've done so far. But if not, who cares? I'm going to keep doing them anyway. Anyway, this is Doc saying, have a great weekend.